All right, we are welcome to the Birthing of Giants Regional Cohort launch. We are going to talk to you guys a little bit about what this program is, but first I'm going to introduce my co-hosts here. We've got Lewis Schiff. Lewis is the Birthing of Giants Regional Cohort Program leader. He's actually the leader of all of the Birthing of Giants. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Lewis has done and the program that has been around for well over a decade and the success that we've had with many entrepreneurs and business leaders across the country. And we've got Chris Quinn. Chris is the co-founder of the Birthing of Giants Regional Cohort Program. And Chris has been a very successful peer group leader for much of his career, in addition to being a Marine and corporate leader for a long time. So he has coached many business owners and leaders throughout his time. But I can go deeply into your backgrounds, but we're on LinkedIn. Everybody can click on your wonderful profiles and get to your LinkedIn profiles. We want to get into what is the Birthing of Giants? Funny name, amazing program. And what is that? And why should people be interested in the Birthing of Giants? So, Lewis, I'm going to start with you. What is the Birthing of Giants Regional Cohort Program?
So Birthing of Giants has been around for quite a long time, helping business owners throughout. Business owners do not naturally spend time with other business owners. If you think about it, you've got vendors, clients, employees, they take up pretty much all your time. And so you have to contrive reason for business owners to be in the room with each other. And the answer is a peer group. And Birthing of Giants has provided the roadmap for a Birthing of Giants program, a community, for decades now. It's for a business owner who might have an MBA, but probably doesn't. Actually, most business owners of any success haven't gone that path. They're probably technical experts. Maybe they're a great engineer or a great software writer or visual designer or something, where they're just good at something and they've built a business around them over time. And what they're missing is the education of a business owner. So you could build a business up to 50, 100, 200, 500 million dollars and still be missing some of the fundamentals that have to do with, how do businesses actually scale and create value. Business owners tend to be really good at relationships. They're probably really good at figuring out what their product should be. But if you say, well, how does the business actually build, asset value over time in a way where somebody would say, oh, I'll pay this much for that. They don't actually know how that works. They're very P&L focused. They're very revenue focused. So there's just a huge gap in the marketplace. And Birthing of Giants for a very long time has been filling in the gap. It's teaching people teaching business owners how to basically switch from the operator mentality to the owner mentality. And the regional cohort program, I'll ask Chris if he wants to describe how this program fits in. But for the past couple of decades, Birthing of Giants has really been this thing called a fellowship program. It's a 1-week intensive. It takes place at Princeton. And for 1 week, dozens of business owners come in. They go through 5 intense days of boot camp, a really intense education in, this thing called ownership, asset value creation, capital markets, understanding where they fit in the larger ecosystem so that they can create the kind of wealth that they probably have, in their minds. They're creating this kind of wealth, but they may not have the company yet that quite tracks with that. Chris, what do you think the regional cohort version of all that is?
Yeah, no. So I think, I experienced it. I was actually an attendee of the fellowship week. And I think what struck me, obviously the content is robust, the tools, the learning. It was, it was 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. It was a lot in a short period. It was intense. It's my wife. That's what we say. How we say intense, right? So what with the conversation with Lewis that resonates with me is taking this, into a format where there's a lot more opportunity and a cadence to iterate and apply and build. And that's the regional cohort program is a quarterly program over, 3 years, 12 sessions. And I think that's a big change that, we're excited about. And I think it gives the owners the chance to have that MBA-like experience that Lewis is talking about. And actually adults learn that way. They learn by doing, and it's not theoretical and it's applied to their business. So really excited about that.
The way we've been looking at, I'm sorry, Shay, I just want to add a little color to that is, Birthing of Giants has this intensive week. And so imagine all these business owners coming in from all over the country. They're getting to know each other. They go through this power week. and then they go back to their offices. And probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, what that left short was all the run up and all the post work. So they here in the regional cohort program, they're getting to know each other. They're meeting regularly. They're meeting in a region, so they already have probably some 6 degrees of connection anyway, and they're growing over time with the program. And then they come to Birthing of Giants Fellowship Week in Princeton about halfway through as a group for that Power Week, and then they come back to their cohort. So if you want to talk about adult learning and actual implementation, actual getting stuff done, the format of the regional cohort with the fellowship in the middle is a way more effective way to do what Birthing of Giants has been doing for the last 10 years.
Lewis, you mentioned in the beginning that really most business leaders, when you hit a certain point, you have time for your business and whatever small personal life you have. So they're not out networking, finding each other, and then building these places where they can truly dig into the business and look at what the business might be and build value. I know in Birthing of Giants, we talk a lot about exit value and value in companies. Can you talk a little bit about value, and then we'll go a little bit into the program itself and kind of how it works?
Sure. I'm going to ask our producer to put up the slide if she doesn't mind, Lauren. I'm going to go one slide ahead to your question. So we have a framework. The framework works to create scale. What the word scale is, it means a lot of things now. Because there is so much money looking at companies like ours. I mean, you could be a person in business for 10 or 20 years and not quite realize that 10 years ago, the world of private equity and family offices and even just corporate M&A, they fully ignored you because you were too small. And now all of this tremendous amount of money has built up in private equity, et cetera. And it's looking for a place to land. And they're looking at us. We call it the lower middle market. Call it $5 million to $500 million of revenue, or you can call it 2 million in EBITDA on up. And honestly, they wouldn't have even returned your calls in the old days. Now, there's a lot of interest in our size company. The imbalance that's a problem is that these very well-educated and very well-experienced deal makers are coming to our offices and making deals, and those deals are not right for us. They're not good lower middle market business owner deals. So the 6 steps framework talks about your value proposition. How do you deliver value to your clients? But it does it in a way where equity asset value is being built, and that is good for you as the owner, whether or not you ever sell. Because the saying we have internally is the most attractive company to buy is the one that's not even for sale. It's just doing well, so you don't have to talk about how to sell it. There also can come the moment where you do want to sell it and the company's already finely tuned for sale. So the 6 steps process that we've identified it starts with PREP, P-R-E-P, which is profits, revenues, and exit prices, P-R-E-P, the obsession of every business owner everywhere, every single day. So we start where you are. We start where the business is, where you're thinking about how do you grow profits, revenues, exit value in the company. And then we move on to sort of a breakdown of how we create an actual scaled value proposition by working to identify the 3-leg stool. That's the part 2. Step 2, 3-leg stool, which is in every business. If you put it on the operating table and you take it apart, it's going to have labor, technology, and cash in different forms for every company, always the same 3-legged stool. And then if you go to step 3, the 4 levers, every one of those 3 legs can be altered and transformed by looking at money, which is to say how the capital markets look at us. Model, your financial model. How does a dollar come in? What happens to it? Does $1.50 come out? How long does it take to get it out? Market, which is what market do you serve? What clients do you serve? What products do you deliver to them? What's the profitability and the operational ease of working with those particular products and clients? Or kind of advanced version of markets is, can you grow your company by acquiring other companies that build your market that way? And then management, who are the half a dozen people who are going to make this soar? And what's important about that is, if you do think about a sale, if you do think about that $100 million payday, you're leaving. So the company is being bought because of the management team you leave behind. And a lot of business owners don't even kind of check in on that. But you can't really possibly credibly go into a sale conversation without having a great dream team behind you, because they all understand that when the check comes, you're probably going to be out the door. Next step is the Birthing of Giants road mapping methodology. We call it 1 year from today, and we shorthand it to OYFT, 1 year from today. And every business owner who comes through Birthing of Giants, every time you see them, they say, here's how we're doing on my OYFT. But it's a pretty simple way of just saying, you got 12 months to do something worthwhile, substantial. And let's break that down to 90 days and 30 days. But 12 months is, given the fast pace of business marketplace now, you have 12 months to do something special. And then you have 12 more months after that to do something special. And then 12 more months to do something special. In other words, you stack up 1 year from today's. Goodbye and good riddance to the 3-year plan, the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan. It's 1 year from today, after 1 year from today, after 1 year from today, which allows you to be strategic, but also pivot as the real world changes. And we call the next step strategy stacking, because if you stack up those 1 year from today's, and you practice this methodology we call the Buffett benchmark, made famous by Warren Buffett, is you're constantly looking backwards to see what you got done and how it affected the value of your company, and then reflecting forward at what you need to get done to build the value of your company. It's deceptively simple, but it's just never done by business owners. And then the last step here is called outcomes, which is kind of the first step, actually, if you're being serious about it, which is, what are you trying to do? So a small giant is somebody who says, I love my business for what it is. It's highly profitable. I don't want to get too complicated. I don't need to build some fancy leadership team. I don't need to worry about complicated golden handcuff programs or anything like that. I just want to run a highly profitable company. I call that sometimes that you want to be the king or the queen of your own castle. The next one is a big giant, which is kind of the total opposite. You want to partner with capital markets, maybe private equity. You want to start acquiring other companies. You want to build something pretty complicated that the marketplace will put a premium on. And I would call that being the general of an army, more complicated than being the king of your castle, queen of your castle. And then the last outcome here is the giant exit. That's basically when you say, I want to be out of here in 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And you say, between now and then, I want to build the most valuable company I possibly can and prep for exit. And so when we start the Birthing of Giants 6 steps process, we start actually by saying, where do you want to go? Which makes sense. If you don't know where you want to go, you'll never get there. And this is where the prep process, step 1, falls short, is that it really doesn't contemplate where you want to go. It just kind of deals with the immediate 12 months as if that's the last year of your life. It's not really true. To do important stuff in your business, you're going to have to think, a few years out in terms of an outcome, not in terms of your strategic planning. All of this together, steps 1 through step 6, add up into a value proposition that suits your outcome and that uses the 4 levers to affect the 3 legs. And, basically you look up 3 years later and your company has not just doubled and tripled. That's not how we look at it. The companies that go through this process are getting 5 and 10 times and 100 times more valuable, because it's not that business owners aren't terribly smart about their businesses. They really are. It's just that you got to feed them the right information about how the capital markets look at their companies. And once they understand that, they make smarter, better decisions. And all of a sudden their companies are worth, again, we've had people come into the program with companies that were worth nothing and exited for hundreds and hundreds of millions, because they learned how to create value out of all their efforts. So that's what it's about.
What I love about, learning about the program, and since I've become part of Birthing of Giants and will be leading this cohort in Charlotte, is really talking about how simple, but how intentional it is. Very well done and well researched. I've seen a lot of programs that are complicated. They thrive on complexity versus we're going to make it simple, smart, proven methodology that has been done over and over, but with people who also know how to adjust to markets, because the market today, as you mentioned, is entirely different than the market of 10 years ago and the market before we had cell phones, before we had whatever, you name it. AI is the newest thing, but we're talking about how do you create long-standing value in your company that is going to be there, and how do you create a company that can move with the markets and move to where the puck is, as our friend Wayne Gretzky always says. So
yeah, I love that quote.
Yeah, it's a great one. Well, one of the things that I'd love for people to know more about is you go, great, I'm a business owner, I'm a business leader, I'm trying to be in my business. And oh, by the way, because I'm still in the weeds, HR, if I have HR, is calling me because so-and-so hadn't done such and such. So talk to me a little bit about like how the day works, that they're with us once a quarter. And then let's talk about what each session looks like and what they can expect to get out of it.
Yeah. So the way we look at it, it's quarterly, right? So, to be not too cute about it, you spend 89 days out of a quarter being tactical, dealing with all the stuff coming to your office. I always like to say that if you have a company with employees and vendors and clients, you're on everybody's to-do list, right? And that's the challenge, is you are on everyone's to-do list. So you spend 89 days swatting those balls as they come flying at you. What would it look like to spend one day a quarter with your peers being totally strategic, not totally tactical? And what could you get done if you added 4 of those days a year, and then add in the fellowship week, which is 5 intense days right in the middle? We have the receipts to prove it. You move the company forward dramatically. And that one day you spend with us every quarter is broken up into 4 2-hour chunks, which you're looking at on the screen. The first is called experience and wisdom sharing, and that's really just an acknowledgement that when you came in at 8 a.m. for your regional cohort meeting, your session with Shay in Charlotte, stuff is already going on, right? You've got 2 or 3 or 5 things on your mind that are hot issues. If you could take one of them away, that would be great. You got 10 or 12 or 15 amazing entrepreneurs in the room, and you have Shay facilitating. So take on that thing that's on your mind right now. It's called experience and wisdom sharing. Can someone help me with this? Here's where I'm at. And you have that group of people helping through that for just 2 hours. You can kind of remove the thorn in your side and become more strategic. The second part of the day we call the deep dive with a special speaker is every single one of the sessions. So you're there for 12 sessions. It's a 3-year program, and it meets quarterly. So that's 12 sessions. Each one has a speaker, a really world-class deep business thinker on some topic that's very relevant to business. It could be building sales programs. It could be growth through acquisition. It could be designing a competitive moat around your business. It could be, running a financial operation that really makes sense, sort of operational accounting instead of, tax accounting, which is no fun. So really valuable stuff for a business owner to learn. Then we have a 3-year growth roadmap. So we have a curriculum that basically looks at your company, looks at the macroeconomic system around your company, and looks at you as the entrepreneur in the middle of that company. And over the course of 3 years, we're teaching everything you need to know to be a business owner, from how you operate best as a leader to how the bigger economy, sort of the Wayne Gretzky puck quote, where's the puck going? So how do we make sure that we're there when it gets there? That's a very wonderful 2 hours every session to learn about the world, how business works. And then the last is what I would call the accountability piece. So it's 1 year from today, OIFT, and strategy stacking, looking at the future, looking at the past, putting it into a platform where you can do something about it for the next 89 days until you meet again. And the sort of really cool part, which we can't really go into here, is that this is all backed by an AI-driven platform. So not only are you spending the day thinking with your peers, the work you do carries into the next quarter where you can interact with that work. You can ask questions of your conclusions that you reached on this day. Your team can appropriately share your roadmap by kind of plugging into the 90-day version of it. So the 1 day's work cascades out to your team, to your right-hand person. And so the work really carries on for the next 89 days until you meet again. And that's how the day works. It's 1 day that's a reflection of the past 90 days and a kind of like a projection out to the next 90 days.
So, Lewis, you talked about this special speaker. And one thing that I want to dive a little bit into here is that one of the things I found really interesting as I've gotten into this program is the amount of incredible entrepreneurs across the country that we have access to connect our cohort members to. And, as I've looked at many of them and looked at their backgrounds, I love that these are people who are not necessarily at these wonderful big companies, but didn't build them. They are people who built the companies and have that boots on the ground experience that they can share with our business leaders. So talk a little bit about how members access the advisors.
Yeah, so I mean, the stories that come to mind, I mean, they really rush through my head. I can remember the person who came in on day one of the fellowship program, basically bankrupt. I mean, things had happened since he signed up for the program. It was just in the worst kind of trouble. And not kidding, by day five, the faculty had lined up new financing for him. Five days later, and he just thought he couldn't believe what he was watching. I remember the person who came in who presented their business, which was a lumber business, and they couldn't get past a revenue amount. And everyone listening to this, every business owner thinks their business is so unique that nobody could possibly understand it. So he comes in and he says, I can't get past this revenue ceiling. And he talks through the business. And one of the faculty members says, well, how long is your siding? I didn't know what siding meant. Siding is that railroad split that comes by into a lumber yard to drop off supplies. And he says, well, it's about 150 feet, my siding. And the faculty member says, well, that's your problem. It needs to be 350 feet. And he goes and spends the next few years building 350 feet, and he unlocks the revenue ceiling. So the one thing is business is business. It really is driven by the numbers, no matter what business you're in. And the other thing is our faculty is incredibly well-versed in a lot of things. And they are part of the program to help you. I mean, they're sort of remarkably giving people. So you might start out coming across them during the quarter, but it's very common for them to keep working with you, in between the quarter. And Chris has some experience with that too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Chris, I'd love to hear too. You've been involved in the peer group environment for a long time. And while there's a wonderful piece of this that is about connecting our business owners to each other, talk about the peer group aspect and how you see that.
Yeah, it's certainly distinct from a peer group. It's as you mentioned. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and we started with it, is the roadmap. The fact there's a curriculum. I mean, it is much like an MBA, as Lewis said, an entrepreneurial MBA. So it's got a defined time period. It's a program. It has a beginning and an end. It's not evergreen. So the curriculum is huge. The roadmap, the learning. I think the application piece of it, it's a red thread or red stripe that runs through everything. You're applying it to your strategy stacking. So everything is gaining momentum on a specific aspect of your business. Your 1 year from today, which is driving value and momentum. So that's different. I would say the kind of ruthless focus on that, applying the learning. The Princeton Fellowship Week obviously is certainly unique. The fact that you go there, and this will be probably almost 2 years into the journey, you'll be going there and meeting people from other cohorts and getting new eyes on your 1 year from today and stress testing it further, getting feedback. Then going back for the final year or so with your cohort, and everybody say, okay, I got some things I got to work on. I've got a new set of eyes, got some good feedback. So that's certainly new. And I think the biggest differentiator is the people like you, Shay. The people who are running the group are post-exit entrepreneurs. They're people who've done it. And what does that mean? I think it means they understand, they kind of have the right brain, left brain kind of balance. They get the emotional part of being an owner and the identity, and this is so entwined with who I am. They also understand, because they've exited, the economics. What's the best value? I mean, how do you optimize the value? So I think that I joke a little bit about it. It's like, if I went to Mount Everest, I'd want the Sherpa that had lost a few fingers to frostbite and maybe a few teeth from falling on rocks. I don't want the fresh-faced one that's excited as I am to go up the mountain going, hey, I've never done this, but God, let's get going. So I would say our cohort leaders have frostbite and a few digits missing. And, and I think that's probably an asset, because they've done multiple exits, some of them 4 or 5. And I think that credibility is important. I mean, if you're going to give up the time and you're going to, leave your business for a day, a quarter, and be in this environment, I think you want to be well led, and you want to be led by people who get the emotional part of it, but as well as the economic part of it and the business part of it. So the owners often are the ceiling for the company's growth, and a lot of times they'll invest in systems and processes, but the ceiling isn't raised because they get in the way. And I think what this program allows them to do is raise their ceiling. They get to raise their leadership ceiling as well as their business, and both have to happen for real change to occur.
I love that. And really looking at the way that business owners are looking at their business differently. And then, one of the things about the program and being the cohort leader is to help get them in touch with all of the resources that they need. It might be something simple that we can find locally, but they don't have the time or the resources to source it. Or it might be something like your wonderful guy who needed to know how long the siding was, finding an expert in things that they don't think they could even find.
Right.
So those are the things that I think are going to be really different than a peer network, and be complementary to a peer network that they might be in already.
Yeah.
We, I know, are hosting a free information session on September 24th in Charlotte for people who might be interested in the program. So, Lewis, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, really, I, at the risk of sounding a little bold here, you cannot find a better way to spend a morning than with us for, a couple hours where we can tell you and paint the picture of what's happening that I'm sure you have all the, you being the business owner, I'm sure the business owners have hints of all of this. They're getting the phone calls from capital markets. They're wondering what that's all about. They have a friend or two or five who've explored it. But they have like a very piecemeal understanding of what it is. So we're going to lay it out for them. We know what's happening. We know why it's happening. We know how to do it right. We know how to do it wrong. And we'll lay out this case about how we can go on a 3-year journey together to figure it all out, so that when you exit the other side, you're transformed, whether you want to sell the business or not. And that's super important to know. This is not about how to sell your business. This is about how to build the most value in the business you have in a way where you and everyone else derive the most value from it. So just 90 minutes later, you're going to see the whole picture here. I promise it.
So this really is an entrepreneurial MBA for most business owners. I'm going to be a little general here. Maybe didn't love being in a seat at a college or university for their whole time. So it's a little less a button seat, but a whole lot of value out of that time. So we're really going to lay that out as we talk through the program in the information session and give them a deep dive into it. The other things that, let's talk a little bit about why business owners should attend the info session.
Well, I'll say it. I'll jump in. I think the business owners that I work with are endlessly curious. I mean, I think they're always looking for, ways to learn. And so 90 minutes, as Lewis said, an investment to kind of catalyze thinking, be stress test some of your ideas, get exposed to different ways of looking at business. I think the reason you became an entrepreneur is because that's the way you're wired. You're running towards new things. You're not running away. You're not a laggard in terms of adoption. You're an early adopter, most likely, because you're you're breaking trail. And so those kinds of people, I think, are going to be, enticed by this. And I think I'd encourage them to invest in 90 minutes. And I know they won't be disappointed. I know it's just I think it's a great opportunity to kind of catalyze thinking and perspective.
Chris, having the privilege of knowing who has already signed up, because I'm the one working and helping them sign up. We've got some really interesting businesses, and businesses that people might know the name of as local, really good businesses that are building and growing and known for being entrepreneurial and for thinking about the way they do business differently. So the idea is that we get people of different industries in, so that the experience share really does go across industry, across size. But there's some really cool people that are already looking at it.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's a great kickstart, just a chance to take the temperature of the community of business owners around you, and to almost collectively challenge ourselves. Like, what do we want to, why are we here? Why are we working so hard? And what do we want to get done?
Yeah. And growth really comes from not being the smartest person in the room, but looking around at others and learning. So I think it's an opportunity for business owners to say they might not know about something, but be in a room where they can experience, share, and then also learn from experts and grow themselves. So yeah. As we get to the end of this and wrap up, I am so appreciative of both you, Chris and Lewis. Is there anything that you guys would like to parting words for our attendees?
Well, yeah, I just want to say that so much of the core of this is you, Shay. It's that person who's in that community, lives in and is of that community, who has, stood up and said, I'm gonna help lead a group through the promised land. And that makes all the difference. And we are really lucky. Chris, who's really just next door to you in Raleigh, even though this is a nationwide effort, it happens to have a really strong North Carolina nexus, has been making really good decisions about who belongs in that seat that you're in. And so the folks who are going to get to join you on the journey in Charlotte, have that. It's a really great thing that they get to spend time with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And we've got some great people who are ready to rally around this cohort and make sure that all these entrepreneurs are successful. And Chris,
absolutely, you don't want to leave Raleigh as the center of entrepreneurship in North Carolina.
I mean, we've not a friendly rivalry, right? So
yeah,
game on.
Lift up North Carolina. We'll let some Wilmington people, some Asheville people, y'all can come in. It's only one day a quarter.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. I appreciate it. And it's been wonderful talking with you. Please reach out if you're interested in being a part of this cohort or just to learn more about Birthing of Giants Regional Cohort, launching here in Charlotte.
All right. Thanks, Shay.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank you.